Hello and welcome to Nintendo Pals Podcast, the daily show all about Nintendo and friendship. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about a very pertinent and current subject, and that is games journalism and gaming journalism. Is it a dying industry? Are gaming journalists trustworthy for giving reviews of games? And is it having a good or bad impact on the industry as a whole? Micah, you ready to jump on into this one?
Yep.
Let's get into it. All right. So, on the onset here, it's been a meme for a long while that IGN just gives everything like a 7 out of 10, at least. They never score anything lower. Um,
Maybe they
and,
just respect the developers' efforts.
well, there's also been um, a just a bunch of dialogue around can we even trust review scores from these sites because they get their games for free. There was a whole big, this is not in gaming, but there was a whole big news thing I saw on Rotten Tomatoes where small films were paying independent journalists to give their movies favorable scores on Rotten Tomatoes because a high score meant more people would come check out your film, even if it doesn't match the audience score. If the so people will get curious if there's a big gap, and so they would be like purposely inflating the numbers or sometimes deflating the numbers to get more traction for their movies. And I think to some extent, there hasn't been anybody like busted for doing this in the gaming space, like no gaming publishers that are like, hey, give us a good score. But
But I mean, if you give us free review codes, we'll give you a good score.
no. That's not where I was going with this. Well, I was saying, but the thing to take away from this is that review scores have an effect on buyers purchasing, like what they will pursue and purchase. A good score can lead to more sales, and a bad score can lead to the death of a game. So that's an interesting space that has been formed around gaming because this wasn't how it was when we were kids, right? It was like,
It's such like, how cool does it look?
how cool does it look? Does my friend have this game? Did I play it at my friend's house? Did I play it at the display at the store? And did I enjoy it for that? Did I rent the game and did I like it? And now I want it. So that's where you got, yeah. And then kind of like a very early era, we started seeing things like Nintendo Power and gaming journalism pop up in that regard. But even then, that was like pretty limited to who saw those. You had to be a subscriber to a magazine or whatever. But with the dawn of the internet, we see a lot more, and it just is a growing field with gaming journalists and gaming journalism. So I don't know, Mike. I was kind of throwing this out here. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about gaming journalism? How do you feel about these big sites like IGM, GameSpot, um,
Uh,
Game
It's
Explain?
pretty cool, I guess. I don't really ever look at those sites very often, so I don't get much use out of them.
I'm in the same boat. I don't really know anybody that does look at reviews of games, but yet they're still like talked about a lot. Like, oh, this scored really good. You've got like these like Metacritic type sites, Metacritic,
Yeah, so
OpenCrit.
I just go to like Metacritic or OpenCritic and then just read a few of those. I don't necessarily pay attention to who gave it.
Yeah. What influences a purchasing decision for you? It's obviously not review scores, or has that like deterred you from buying games before?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm on the fence
Yeah.
or potentially with like the upcoming Myth Force game, I was like, man, this game looks like it could be a lot of fun, but it has like 67 or something
Yeah, it
out of
was
100. And I'm like,
below a 7, which is the death of a game.
yeah, which is like, I don't know if I want to spend my monies on that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's a benefit to this, but it also at the same time is like if a game gets unfairly rated for whatever reason, say it's an indie title and it's played by someone who just does not like that genre, because as much as people refuse to admit it, they will throw bias like hardcore in on their reviews. It's so funny because they'll be like, "Oh, I'm giving this a if it's a bad score, they're gonna be like, I'm giving this a very subjective review. If it's a really high score, they're like, oh yeah, giving it a very subjective review. But it's like you can't take bias out of a review. Like there's the human element and how much you enjoyed it will skew how you talk about it, right? So I don't know where I was going with this. I kind of just started rambling on here. But to me, for me, if I am looking to reviews to influence my decision to get a game, I will either look at the high level, which is a conglomerate of scores like Metacritic, or I will look to someone that I know that is playing it and someone that I trust or that I follow that plays games that I like. Like,
Yeah,
so and so liked
you have,
this game. I probably will like it.
you have to like read the reasoning of why they gave it the score they did to know if it's an accurate score for you.
Yes, yes. But unfortunately, those are like two. So I would say that like most people aren't looking that deep into the reviews. They just look at the score and give it a simple pass fail based off of is this a 7 is this above a 7, then it passes and then you go to the next step. Or yeah, and because of that we see a lot of scoring that is just kind of like middle, you know? It's like, oh well, this is what the meme is born of IGN giving everything a 7 out of 10. It's just like people want to be moderate with their review, but they also don't want to give it like a 5 because that's feels bad. We,
That's rude.
yeah, well, we've also conflated 1 through 10 scale with the American letter grade system, which is just bad. But I digress. I digress in that regard. I watched a funny video this week by video game Donkey, if you're familiar with Donkey, and he talked about how to be a good game reviewer, and basically went through IGN reviews, and every time, and I don't know if this is actually how it is, but this is how he portrayed it, and it makes sense. Every time a game was scored really high, the comment sections would be filled with positivity. Like, wow, give this man a raise. This review is so good. Like, wow, what, like, yeah, this is great. And every time it was low, all the comments were just flaming the person. Like, wow, another person that doesn't understand such and such series or this genre. Like, oh, and, and here's the thing is
That's
like,
because the most passionate people are the ones that are most likely to comment.
yep. So, so hard to be subjective when this is the kind of world we live in with internet and so like you can't come in and be like, I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10 because there will be pitchforks and riots in the streets from fans of whatever game or series.
Unless it's Redfall, then people will agree with you.
Yeah, it has to be universally hated.
I actually don't know how badly rated Redfall is. I've just
It
heard
is.
it's
It is.
disappointing.
I think it's 4 or 6.
Pretty rough.
It's very rough. It was very bad. It was a bad game. Um, yeah, and then you also see a lot of I've been seeing this a lot more. There's like a lot of dogpiling on a company. So you'll just their games will get review bombed just because it was made by a company that you're angry at. Which honestly, to some extent, is fair, right? Like Activision Blizzard deserves a lot of the backlash they've gotten on a lot of their games, um, because company practices there are really bad, but also some of the games have been not so great. And practices like, and then dogpiling on practices. So if the game includes microtransactions, it's like automatically not going to score as high. If the game is free to play, it's automatically not going to score as high. If the game, I don't know, like there's just
The game costs too much.
price. Yep. So it's hard, I think, to define. There's no, the problem with games journalism, and it's also the beauty of it, is there's not like a defined criteria for how to judge games. Everybody has a different idea of how that should look. And so you're going to never please anybody in reviewing games. And I think that's just kind of the reality of it. I do take a bit of issue with these big news sites like IGN and GameSpot and Game Explain. Well, I don't know if Game Explain's pretty small, but these places where you have actually like hundreds of people doing reviews, and then you're not going to get consistency because everybody is going to be scoring completely different. And so you end up having to like follow a person within that group more than the group as a whole. And so it's like, what's the point of being a big group? IGN is like a mini Metacritic just for the people they hire. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So I take issue with that, but I don't know what the solution to that is. Break up IGN. Everything be independent journalism, but then independent
To
journalists.
have one person at IGN that reviews every game.
Per Schneider, the like OG Nintendo guy. He'll review everything. I'm sure he would love that. But then you have the problem of one of the reasons that Rotten Tomatoes had that whole issue with payout was that those were all independent reviewers. So there needs to be some sort of regulation in there so that you can't just be bought out as they're like small individual creators. Like, here you go. Here's a bunch of money to give this a favorable score. That being said, we would like to bribe you with our amazing content to give this show a favorable score on your podcast listening app of choice. Give us a 5-star review. Hit it up and do it. And Mike, I think this is a good spot to end this episode with bribery of our own for you to review Nintendo Pals.
Yeah.
But Michael, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on Twitch and YouTube at Micah Prime.
You can find me at Andros1. And you can also follow the show. Nintendo Pals. YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, X, all the social media platforms. And we hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And keep on keeping on, or whatever you're doing right now. Yep. All right,
Goodbye.
bye. Bye.